Hello and welcome back. In the last tutorial, we drew an image to the canvas and were able to rotate it, but we had to recompile it every time. In this episode, we'll be making a key manager, which will allow us to move the image in response to key presses, a vital video game element. First up, let's make sure that our code from the last tutorial compiles. You can check this code out from the repository by using the tag tutorial3, and it should get you to the same point in the code development. And you should be able to see the same rotated image shown here. So today, we will add a key manager and change the image rotation based on the key presses. The problem we have is that we only receive events when a key is pressed and when it is released, so we have to store these values so that we can check if a key is currently pressed. We can do all of this with a hash map, which is essentially a container with a generic key and value type. If we use a string for the key and a boolean for the value, we can store whether a key is currently pressed or not. True if it's pressed and false if it's not pressed. First, we will copy the functions from the utils file repository. This contains functions for storing the key down and key up events in the hash map. So, we'll create a new file and call it utils.rs, and then we paste in the contents of the file. I'll give a brief overview of the functions, but I'll try and do a more in-depth explanation in another video at some point. So, we have a function called keyDown. This will set the value for the given key name, in this case just the letter of the key, as true, or insert a new item into the hash map. And we have a keyUp function which does the opposite and sets the value to false again, or inserts if necessary. Although we'd hope that we already have the key in the hash map, it is possible to receive a key up before a key down. If, for instance, the key down happened on another window and then we returned focus to our window. And finally, we have an isKeyPressed function to query the hash map and return true or false for a given key, returning false if the key does not exist at all. So we save and close that file and it's ready to import into our main file. And we can do that by writing pubmod utils near the top of the file, next to the import of the texture manager. We also need to include the import of std collections hash map so that we can use that container type. Make sure that we get the capitalization correct, a capital H and a capital M. And we'll scroll down in our file and create our key manager underneath the event pump variable. We can create it anywhere, but it makes sense to group these together here as they are used together. We need to make it mutable because we will be changing its contents. It is of type hashmap with two generic types. The first is a string and the second is a bool. And we can instantiate that with the hashmap new, and the compiler can infer how to create this from the type context. Next, we need to connect these components together with the event pump, and we'll do that by creating a match type for event keyDown, storing the key code as a variable. We'll then match the key code to make sure it's not none. And wrapping the key code in the sum check, we can call the utils function to insert it into the hash map for us, or update if it's already in there. We add key to string to make sure we get the string value of the key, which will be uppercase, as we'll see later. Our key up event will be the same, but with a couple of changes, so we can just copy and paste and update those calls, like so. Finally, add the last comma, so we pass off our unused events to do nothing. We'll pass in our key manager directly to our render function. We'll do that as a reference. Then we'll scroll up to our render function in order to be able to add the argument into the signature. We have to give it a type of hashmap string boolean, and it doesn't need to be mutable because we aren't updating it here, only querying to see which keys are pressed. And the key manager is now ready to use. We need to create a mutable variable called angle of type f64. We will use this to hold the current rotation of the PNG image. The default is 0. Then we can call our utils isKeyPressed function, passing in the key manager and the name of the key we want to check, in this case W, and then if it is, then we will set the angle equal to 0. And we can copy and paste this for our next letter, which is the letter D, and we will set the angle to 90 degrees. We'll copy this again twice more, setting the angle for the letter S to be 180 degrees, and if the letter A is pressed, then it will be 270 degrees. And the last thing we need to do is tell the copyX function that we want to use the variable to control the rotation and not the hard-coded value from last time. And so we will try running this using cargo run and see what happens. So we should be able to see the spaceship drawing like last time. If we press the D key, we can see the rotation changes to 90 degrees, S to make it face downwards, and A to make it face left. And so there we have it. We've now got a working key manager to allow us to track which keys are pressed and allows us to change the displayed graphics based on those key presses. We're well on our way to making the spaceship move smoothly around the screen. Join us next time when we will include the specs library to let us track our player using an entity component system rather than the variables we've created as we go. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the comments on this video and I'll get back to you. For now, have a great day and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.
No.